I've got one glove just so we can hold things, and no helmet so that I don't press the chin button in mine and the faceplate close every time I
We could have done this and just...
Yes.
Yeah, it would have been a nightmare. So we're not fully suited up. It would be very hard to navigate the stage. It'd be a tripping, falling hazard, and we don't need that on YouTube. Sorry.
Yes. Afterwards, though, we will be putting helmets on, fully suited up, walking around a little bit. Yeah. So.
Who are you?
Who am I? My name is Emily. I got started in 3D printing around college time frame a long time ago. When the first Avengers came out, I built my own foam Iron Man suit. I was about 14 years old, and then when I went to college, they had a makerspace, and I was like, this is kind of cool. I kind of want to use this to try to do the thing that I did before, but better. So I started 3D printing stuff like this, suits, and several iterations later, every time you build one, you're like, actually, I could do that better, and you build another one, and now we're here. How about you, Mr. Built?
I'm Frank. Pretty similar story. Grew up loving Avengers, Marvel, all that fun stuff. And about the time of Avengers Endgame, I had a job. I actually had money. I wasn't a broke kid anymore. And I had always seen people walking around in these really cool Iron Man suits, wondering, where are people getting these? Where are people making these? Did a little bit of research, tried to do papercraft. Has anybody done Pepicura or papercraft? Anybody ever tried that? A couple of you?
Yeah.
Godspeed, because it's a nightmare. I gave up very quickly on that and found 3D printing. And that was in 2019. 4 years later, we're here. It got out of hand really quickly.
Yeah.
Yep. And sorry for being fashionably late. We'll talk about why.
Yeah.
Because things break, because that's normal.
Nothing's perfect.
No, not at
This
all.
looks really cool, but if you see us putting it on, it is a nightmare. It's, some can be easy, some parts can be hard. Some things break when you're putting it on. Exhibit A, something broke.
What just broke on your suit? My suit's a shambles.
Yeah. I had a buckle snap off, which, typical easy fix, duct tape, glue, nothing crazy, but it does puts you back for sure.
Unfortunately we don't have the budget of like real Stark, so everything's bought on Amazon and eBay. It's Hobby Lobby, buckles and straps. Wear and tear, things fail over time. So everybody watching is like, hey, look, Iron Man suits. What's the next step if you wanted to go home and make a suit like this? What do you have to do? Do you just buy it on eBay? I got mine on Etsy. Everybody knows that.
Ah, yes, the classic. But first, we do want to ask, how many people were here yesterday and heard us talk yesterday? Okay, so there's a lot of new people. So just to make sure we're not, repeating information people we've already heard it, but this is great because a lot of you are new. So we're going to kind of talk about how you get into making one of these. Where do you get things from to make them? How do you even get started in this? Surprisingly, it's a lot easier than you think. Anyone can do it. It's not like you have to be super trained in one area to figure out how to 3D print or paint properly. It's something that we all learn as we go.
That is absolutely a question that, we got it tons of times. It's just this event, what kind of training did you have? I don't have an engineering degree, but you can learn all this stuff online.
You don't need one. You don't need one.
You don't need one. You absolutely do not need one. I jumped down the rabbit hole, bought the printer, decided to make this very suit. I do not recommend that. Don't start with a full suit. It will drive you nuts. If you have a significant other, it'll probably drive them nuts too.
Yes. I think we both can...
Yes,
we looked at both of our
big shout out to
others.
Emily's husband for helping us suit up. Where is Jonathan?
Yeah.
Where'd he go?
He's probably
Jonathan,
hiding
there he
somewhere.
is. Jonathan, the husband, everybody.
Yes.
Yeah. He is a handler. Is very important for this type of stuff. Have somebody who has patience, who can help you suit up, and it understands when you get aggravated. So.
Yes, very true.
But you don't need any type of training. There's tons of resources online, websites, YouTube tutorials. That's literally how I got my start and why I'm here now. How much do 3D printers cost?
Not as much as you would think. A while back, they did cost a good bit. Back before I was in college and I was looking at them, they were pretty expensive. Now, it's pretty affordable. I know in US dollars, you can get cheap, smaller ones for only like $200. What is that, pounds, Mr. Bill?
About 150 quid. You can get a nice little desktop 3D printer that will literally fit on this podium. And There is no size limitation. Any size 3D printer can make any size thing. It's just going to take more time. It's the same amount of plastic coming out of it, but you're going to have bigger and smaller build plates. So I was able to print this entire chest plate on my suit in one piece on a larger printer, but the abs are actually in 4 separate pieces on a smaller printer. So if you can only afford a small printer, that's totally fine. It doesn't limit you to making full costumes or big stuff like Colin over there if he wants to. You can just have fun with it, and if it fits on a desk, perfect.
Yeah, we know people who have printed entire Iron Man suits on an Ender 3, which is like the classic starter printer for anyone that doesn't know, and it's not big. And there are people who have done it, and they've done it well too, so it's definitely possible. Obviously, the bigger the build plate, the easier, but don't think that it's impossible just because you may have a smaller printer.
And don't think, say you do have a budget of 1,000 pounds, don't just get the biggest printer you can, because bigger printers also print slower. So you do want to find a happy medium and understand that you might be able to print big, but it might use more material, it might take more time, there's more risks for failure. If I send a 5-day long print, there's a lot of chances that could fail, or there could be an error where maybe having a smaller printer that would force me to print multiple pieces over time, there's more safety in that. So don't just get the biggest, wildest printer that can fit in your house, because they are slow. Material. What about material?
Yes. So typically, if you're going to try to build something like this, it takes...
It's made of metal, right?
Oh, yes, 100%. This is definitely not just chrome paint. It is. But if you want to get started, if you want to print your own, it typically takes maybe, 12 to 15 spools, 12 to 15 kilograms of PLA to make one of these things. And that typically includes all the failures you'll experience as well, too.
What do you mean failures? You mean I'm going to mess this up?
Yes, yes. You will goof, it will be disappointing, but it's going to happen. And unfortunately, I have a lot of people that I know that they get like a beginner printer and they start printing and stuff, and things go wrong and they go, oh, it just doesn't work, I'm going to stop. Well, don't, because learning to troubleshoot these things is just kind of part of owning the printer. And once you learn to troubleshoot those things, I mean, you can do pretty much anything with it. A lot of people give up way too early, and it's important to kind of, if it doesn't print right, just try again. It's not the end of the world.
Don't look at our finished suits or the props you see online on Instagram thinking that person just got their machine, they were a master painter, they had no failed prints. Anybody who's trying to sell you that is lying. There are tons of failures that come with this, but don't just get frustrated, learn why that failure happened. And the 3D printing community and the cosplay community, everybody is so warm and welcoming to helping each other. And it's an amazing thing to be a part of, because if you're having a problem with printing or painting or reactions or whatever's going wrong, electronics especially, somebody else probably had that same problem. So reach out to people, ask questions. My laptop went to sleep, oh no. We're good. Yeah, the community is great. Push through those little trials and errors and struggles. You good? You good? Okay.
Yep. Hair, can't really move it out of my face. It's a struggle.
Gotta get it started. All right. What's next? Ooh, the fun part.
Can you do it?
Who wants to see if I can drink a water bottle in this thing? This is going to be interesting.
Does anybody
No.
have that chicken music? Like the
We're gonna grab it.
do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do?
Want me to hold the mic?
Yeah, we're going to...
We'll figure this out.
If it looks like we're sweating, it's because we are. It is toasty up here.
Good?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. If that didn't have like a little squirty nozzle on it,
Sure, I can embarrass myself more today. Why not?
Would have been doomed there. He may or may not be wearing his bicep piece right now. Just saying.
I compromised, okay?
True.
So, this hobby is not one size fits all. And unfortunately, not everybody is shaped like Chris Hemsworth or Iron Man. You're not shaped like that. I'm not shaped like that. I wish. I'm short. I am a very short guy. So scaling and adjusting the files to your body is probably the most important part. The suit files that I'm particularly wearing were made for somebody who is about 6 feet tall, a 32 inch waist. I am not 6 feet tall, so if I was to print everything out at that 100% scale, my legs wouldn't be able to bend. I wouldn't fit in the suit. Luckily, I have the waist. That was the only good thing that I had. And getting everything to fit was after printing it. I printed everything, took a Dremel, took a soldering iron. I cut the plastic up in order to get it to fit me. There are better ways, though.
Yes, there are now programs to help scale things. Before, when I first started, and I'm sure when you first started as well, we just kind of measured our arm and then measured the length of the arm piece, and we're like, yeah, that'll fit me, I guess. Before it was a lot of kind of checking, guessing, just trial and error, but now there's programs like Armor Smith. It's just a software, which is that picture in the middle right there. You can enter all your dimensions, measure yourself, enter your dimensions. It'll kind of pop up a 3D model of your body and allow you to drag all these 3D models onto yourself in the software, so you can see, will this fit? Does it like run into me in any sort of way? Is it too long, short, etc.? So it's really nice. That's what I've been using recently. I know that's what you've been using recently.
How many of you have an iPhone? So with emerging technologies in cell phones, and I think you can start doing it with some Androids, they also have LiDAR scanners on your phone. So the top left picture is actually, both left pictures are 3D scans of my head I took on my phone. There are programs you can use, Scandy Pro, Polycam, or Polyscan, something like that, and you can import 3D models of your own body and scans. It's not going to be the most detailed thing in the world, but that is the exact shape and size of my head. So now I have a model of my head that I can then scale to fit a helmet. I did a Daredevil helmet, and I needed to scale that down a lot in order for it to fit my head. The model was just way too big. So new technologies allow you to do that type of stuff. There's also a really awesome method called test rings. And if I wanted to print this forearm, why print the forearm in one whole piece? I can go into a 3D modeling program and slice off just the wrist part and make basically a bracelet and print that. And if I can't fit my hand through that printed bracelet, well then I know I won't be able to get this entire forearm on. So then you scale it up. So you can print things as a trial and error and save yourself a lot of plastic instead of printing the whole suit at once and just hoping it fits. I think that's it for scaling. It's a pain, but it is a necessity. And this is worse.
Yes, again, like we were talking about before, when you have a smaller printer, you may have to print in multiple pieces. Even with a bigger printer, I use typically a CR10 to print a lot of my stuff. So even with that, I'm going to have to glue pieces together, and how we do that is not actually with glue. We melt the plastic together. We use an old soldering iron, one that we do not care about because it will it might mess it up a little bit, but we take an old soldering iron and we melt the plastic together on the back. So this chest piece right here actually has a seam down the middle of it. Now I've sanded a lot to try to hide it, but if you look on the back of it, you can see where I kind of melted the plastic together. And that's how we mostly join our parts. We sand it down, and yeah, sanding is a whole different
We'll get to
issue.
sanding.
Yes.
I actually had a failure on my suit just bringing it over here, kind of what Emily was talking about, where you can print things in multiple pieces. I did not use a soldering iron because this is my original suit. I used super glue, and it sounds great in theory, but which thigh is it? Which one? Is it this one? This one. My right thigh has a nice big crack across it now. I'll fix it when I get home. It's plastic. But that is where I had fused the two parts back together. And over time, the stress of walking in it, packing it in a suitcase, it just started to fracture again. So the more time you can put in spending in that assembly stage, don't just super glue stuff together, especially if you're going to be wearing it. It was a hard lesson I had to learn. Now I'm going to need to repair the whole thing. So there's definitely pros and cons. Like the little stones on my hand, I can use super glue for that. I don't need to fuse it, weld it forever. But parts that are going to be under stress, maybe consider melting them, welding them. If any of you have ever seen hot staple guns, they use them to repair car bumpers. It heats up a little piece of metal and pushes it into the plastic. People have started using those to repair the seams now too, because now you have a piece of metal fused into that seam line. So it'll be less resistant to breaking.
It's also important to make sure everything fits, assemble it all before you start this sanding and painting process, right? You want it to look nice. I've made the mistake several times where I've gotten really excited about painting a part and I paint it, but then I go, oh, actually, I gotta attach it to this, and I end up ruining the paint and all the finishing work that I did on it after. So it is really, really important to make sure that you're making sure everything fits first, everything's snug, you've got it all rigged together with buckles, straps, etc. And there's really multiple ways you can do it. My suit is strapped a lot different from his, but it's just whatever works for you.
This is, I think, arguably the most important stage of making any costume. Mandalorian, Stormtrooper, Buzz Lightyear, Iron Man, whatever costume you're trying to make, spend the most time in the rigging and strapping stages. Because if you get everything done, if you get everything painted nice and pretty and it looks like it was from the movie, and you go to put it on and it doesn't fit, what was the point? And that is exactly what I did with my suit. I did everything the wrong way. I printed it all, it didn't fit, I didn't take enough time with it, so I had painted everything, and then I had to go back and make tons of adjustments. So I'm scratching the paint, I'm damaging things, I have to reprint things, so the part that I sanded and painted that looked really good is now useless. Take your time in the stage. Walk around your house. Stand in your living room and watch a movie while you're moving around in your suit to make sure nothing is gonna pinch. Wearing it for a few minutes is fine because you might feel that, oh, you know what, my knee is pinching a little bit, but we'll be okay. 2 or 3 hours later of walking around a con, you're now bleeding and there's a pinch point there and it's not good.
We have definitely learned the hard way too. I know my last suit, I finished it in the hotel room.
The morning of.
The morning of the convention. Don't ever do that. That was a dumb idea. That was really not smart of me. So, of course, that's the first time I put it on for a convention, wearing it around places, and sure enough, I was like, oh, I didn't put enough padding in my shoulders. My shoulders hurt really, really bad. So, very, very important. Definitely make sure it's comfortable, because sometimes you'll be wearing these things a lot longer than you expect to. I think the longest I've worn mine is 5 hours. The longest you've worn yours
about
is
6.5, 7 hours.
Yeah.
And if you're wondering, no, I can't sit in this suit. It's not an option. So a lot of people think you'll overheat in the suit first. And I guess if you're in Australia or Texas or somewhere, a really hot climate, it's going to get warm in there. But most of the time, you're just standing. Your feet start to hurt. And on top of that, your shoulders might start to hurt. I know our friend Kiara, her suit starts to get real uncomfortable on the shoulders. So just take your time with that. Remember that there's no time limit on this stuff. If you miss a convention, you miss a convention. Take your time with the projects and just put more love into them. Fitting. What we got next?
Nice.
The worst part.
the fun part, suffering. We love suffering. We don't love suffering. It's sanding. When you think it's sanded, you keep sanding more. And then when you think that's sanded, you keep sanding even more. But one of the key tools to sanding is power tools. That's something that you shouldn't be afraid of. We typically sand down the raw plastic first until we can see no layer lines left. And power tools, orbital sanders, mouse sanders, all those are a really, really great way to do that.
Does anybody, before that comment, did anybody here think you couldn't use power tools on 3D printed plastic? Did you think it was maybe too weak? Couple of you. There used to be a misconception in the hobby years ago because 3D printed plastic was much weaker. It didn't melt at as high of a temperature, so if you use power tools, it made friction, it made heat. It was a lot weaker now. Plastics have come a long way, so you can treat them pretty much like car parts at this point, and that's what a lot of the post-processing goes into. If any of you are familiar with auto body repair, sanding, painting, any person who paints cars professionally will tell you that prep work is 90% of the finish. If you don't put the time into your prep work, your sanding, your smoothing, your priming, you will never get a smooth finish, because the second you hit something with a metallic chrome or some type of metallic finish, it's going to show every single imperfection and flaw. So what do you do when you're done sanding and priming? You keep going.
Yep. Yes. So, for my suit, I learned how to use HVLP, like air gun, like spray paint. But Mr. Built's suit, he just used rattle cans. So you can really, the prep work, if you put a lot of time into your prep work, you can make things look just as good, whether you're using HVLP, rattle cans. It's all just dependent on how much you sand, prep work, and prepare the piece. But yeah, this is kind of where you can get creative with it. I don't know. It's
For those of you that don't know, I used to live here in England for 4 years. I lived up near Cambridge. So when I began to make my suit, I had to use the paints that were available here in the United Kingdom. So a lot of the spray paints I used, I got at Home Base and Halfords and B&Q, and it was just rattle cans. It was a lot of Rust-Oleum brands. There are Rust-Oleum colors here that I actually can't get back in America now. They're exclusive to the region. It's weird stuff. So you can absolutely just get stuff on Amazon. There's tons of private stores who make custom mixed spray paints and cans, or you can do the professional spray gun system that Emily used. You can do airbrushing. I wouldn't airbrush an entire suit, but the details, the small things, if you wanted to do battle damage, airbrushing is amazing for that. And it's just whatever you can afford or whatever works best for you. Yeah. Painting, more paint. And probably the most fun part, bringing everything to life, electronics.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's a lot simpler than people might think. People get really scared if they haven't messed with Arduinos about motorizing an Iron Man helmet. And while anyone can learn it, I promise it's not that hard. I used to just program a little Arduino to go helmet up, lights off, helmet down, lights on. Simple as that. But now there's some tools. We have these things in our helmets called Crashworks boards. And they're basically just plug and play. And they are pre-programmed to motorize and open and close your Iron Man helmet. So those things exist now. The community is making things like that more and more accessible to people that maybe don't want to kind of stick their toe in the programming, you know? So
I still vaguely have any idea how to code and program.
yeah.
That used to scare me the most. Is anybody here scared of coding and programming? Good. I have nightmares. So that was always the scariest part. I could make the helmet, I could print it, I could paint it, but how do you get it to go up and down? And if you guys saw our booth, we don't have the helmets on, sorry, but that was always the scariest part. You had to go to one website to get the code for the servos, and then you had to go to another website to figure out how to get the NeoPixel code onto the board. What board do you use? What wires do you use? Everything was very scattered around 2019, 2020, but because more people got into the hobby, 3D printing became more accessible, more people started making suits, so more people started innovating on the suits. And now, as Emily was saying, you can go to a singular website, drag and drop code onto an Arduino board that you can buy from these people on Instagram. They're called Crashworks 3D, and they're actually starting to work on stuff for non-Iron Man costumes. They're starting to work on Mandalorian stuff. I believe they're starting to creep into Star Wars droids and like R2-D2 stuff too. And you can buy the board, plug all the electronics in, the code's already on it, and you have a helmet that works. That would have been just insane to think about 3 years ago. But the hobby's come that far in such a short time with people just making stuff. And you also don't need to code or program anything. I don't have it on this suit, but I have another suit where the little lights in the hands, you have your light? Put your hand up. Put your hand up.
Yep.
Hand up. Like the little lights in the palms, they're just little dollar store clicker tea lights. Go to the dollar store, buy some cheap electronics. Halloween and Christmas are great because there's so many bargain bins and discount stores that just have used electronics. Pull them apart, they're LEDs, they have batteries built into them. You don't need to custom make your electronics. I'm pretty sure the arc reactor in the middle picture is a closet clicker light that just lights up a pantry. And they put it right behind the arc reactor and you wouldn't know if I didn't tell you. So you don't need to spend hundreds of dollars on electronics. If you just want something to light up, lights already exist. It's pretty cool. I don't have any of Emily's pictures up here.
Boo.
And I think we can open up to questions.
Yeah, so that's pretty much kind of how, I guess, you get started into doing this, the overall process. We can open up to questions if people have questions.
Questions? Hey, we got one.
Are there any printers you'd recommend for starting out?
How many?
Or are there any printers?
Oh, are there any printers? Recommendations? Ooh, great question. Right now, I think the best bang for your buck is the Elegoo Neptune 3 line because they have 3 different sizes. They have the roughly 180, 200 quid model. That is the smaller model that would fit on a desk. And then you have a larger size that's 300 millimeters by 300. It's 300 millimeters cubed roughly. That's much larger. That is a much larger build volume. It can do full helmets in one shot. And then they have the max version, which is 420 by 420 by 500 millimeters. So you can print entire thighs in one shot. So they give you a bunch of different options. They have all the features you need to get started, and they're rather affordable. It's nice.
So, questions about the sanding process. I've tried to sand things before and have melted my prints a little bit. So, questions on what kind of grit do you use? If you use any orbital sanders, what kind of speeds do you do on that to not overheat and melt your prints? Because you say it doesn't happen anymore. It happened to me, so I did something wrong.
Yeah. So for me, I use, on an orbital sander against the raw plastic, I use 80 grit to start off with. I know some people that start with like 40 or 60. I use 80 though. Yeah. But the trick is just not holding it in the same place too long. Because, yeah, you're right. If you do hold the sander, any type of sander, in one place too long on the plastic, it will start to melt and kind of like be a little sticky a little bit. You know what I mean? So you do need to kind of move it around. It is possible. Yeah, increasing the wall count might help. I use a wall count of 2 with a 0.6 millimeter nozzle. But it also depends on what size nozzle you're using too. I use a orbital sander. I go 80 grit, then up to 120, and then typically after that, if I get it smooth enough, I'll go by hand with higher grit things after filler primer and whatnot. Is that typically what you do? Yeah? But yeah, the trick is just definitely not letting it stay in the same place too long, because it will start to kind of melt and peel up if you do that.
Can you sandblast 3D prints?
Typically, no. Sandblasting more or less isn't a self-leveling process. It's more of a stripping process. It will leave abrasions on the print. It will start to kind of sand it, but sandpaper by nature, when you're using a sanding block, that's going to give you a self-leveling. It's going to take off all the high parts, the peaks, and lower them down to the valleys, where sandblasting is kind of indiscriminate in what it's actually trying to strip away. It can probably get you set up to do a primer coat, sandblast it, get it kind of rough, strip off that kind of weird coating that sometimes prints have, and then you can prime it and start with hand sanding. But typically sandblasting, no, it's not a self-leveling process.
Amazing. Anyone else? Where are the hands? I'll come to you because you're closer to me.
I want to get rid of kid in the front.
Hello. What do you think your next big project is going to be?
Next big project.
So I do want to venture outside of Iron Man a little bit, just playing around with 3D printers, seeing what fun stuff I can do with them. But I do, in the back of my mind, want to remake a bit ago, which is actually what kind of kick-started my TikTok and Instagram and stuff. I made a blue Mark 7 suit, and I have a friend that's remodeling that suit to be pretty cool, and I gotta admit, I kind of want to do it justice. We skip?
3D models. Where do you get 3D models for 3D printing? I'm sorry, I thought we had it in there. Anyway, you do not need to know how to 3D model in order to 3D print stuff. The files for our suits, they're available online. Helmets, really any prop or any superhero costume you can think of, anything from Star Wars, Power Rangers, all that stuff's mostly available online. A lot of the files for them are free too. There's tons of websites. Thingiverse.com is always my first go-to for a free file. And a lot of people just enjoy modeling. They're not printing their stuff. They want to model it and see people make it. So if you're into something and you want to print something, chances are somebody else probably wanted to do that too. So, but as you get into more complex models like suits and things with motorization, there is a cost sometimes that is associated with that. But you do not need to know how to 3D model either. You can theoretically hop on Amazon right now, overnight a 3D printer, and be 3D printing an Iron Man suit tomorrow. Don't do that. Oh yeah, my next project, and then we'll get you. Next project is actually going to be completely remaking this suit. I hate how this suit fits. It's broken, as I already talked about. but I made it 3 years ago, and I've learned so much in that time, making friends with people, being part of the community. I know I can make an even better suit. This is my favorite suit. It's the reason I made it. So I want to remake it even better with even more gimmicks and all of that, and get paint that shiny, because that looks awesome.
Okay, here we go, little man.
How long did you make the suit?
How long does it take to make the suit? I worked on mine for about a year, and I had a full-time job at the time. Emily did hers a little quicker.
So when I made my previous one, I was rushing for a convention, and I said, yeah, I'm going to make this in 3 months. Don't ever do that. Don't ever try to make one of these in 3 months. Please take your time. It was an awful thing to do. So, of course, I told Frank, I'm never doing that again. How long do you think I gave myself to make this one? 3 months. It was dumb. Anyway, so I made this one in 3 months. It was a little rushed, though. It's possible. Ideally, maybe like a good 6 to 8 month time frame is a really good time frame to have to build one and be able to do it well, and to be able to just kind of make sure everything is the way that you want it to. But yeah, I'd say that's more so ideal. Do not do as I do.
Exactly. Have we got any other questions? Let's have a look at. Oh, here you go. Right here. Throw in your hand.
Is it possible to make a child-sized Iron Man suit?
Absolutely, yeah. The cool thing about this stuff is you can actually scale it down to whatever size you want it to be. So when you put it on the printer, it doesn't have to be this size. You can scale it down in the software so that it's smaller and it fits anyone. So yeah, you can.
The only thing I would caution against that, though, is kids grow really fast. So by the time sometimes you get done printing and sanding and painting a helmet, it might not fit them anymore. We get asked a lot about kids' Iron Man suits. Maybe pick a costume that can grow with them a little bit. Mandalorian costumes are great for that because there's a lot of kind of room to grow into it. But unless you're going to crank that suit out really fast and get it printed and done really fast, you got to be real careful about printing for kids. But that's the program in the middle, Armorsmith, that we were talking about. You can theoretically make an Iron Man suit for an infant if you wanted to, which would be adorable, actually.
Great. I think we've got a question here. So this is a little guy. You got a question? No? Scared of me now. I turned up. That's what happened. Okay. He wants to know what your favorite suits are.
I'm wearing it. This is my favorite suit. This is the Mark 85 from Avengers Endgame. This is what got me into the whole hobby. I will never not have a version of this suit. I love it.
I'd say my favorite is definitely the Mark 7 from the original Avengers, because I actually got into this stuff because my dad forced me to go watch it with him. I was not into Marvel or anything, and my dad was like, nope, you're gonna go watch this with me. Made me go watch it with him, and I absolutely loved it. And now I tell him every single day that this is his fault, all of this. So, the Mark 7.
Have we got any more questions? This gentleman down here.
How many cans of paint did it take you, Frank, to do your suit?
How would I know that unless I saved every can I used for this? Weird. What a specific question. Yeah, this took, it was about 250 quid worth of paint, about 8 cans of primer, 5 or 6 cans of red. Now, when doing Iron Man colors, this entire suit's actually gold. To get it changes the cooler reds to a more ruby red if you do a gold base coat. And when I scratch the paint, it looks gold under it, and it makes it look really cool. I think I used 2 cans of gold, 1 can of gunmetal, and about 4 cans of clear coat. And you can pick and choose. You can just do a completely base red that doesn't need to go over anything. If you spend more time sanding, you can use less primer. Also, don't be afraid to let your printers do the work. A lot of people want to rush and get the print out so they can start sanding it and getting it finished and pretty. But if it's a highly intricate, detailed piece, let the printer print as best a quality as possible. This way you have to sand less. Can you lift up the chest plate by chance? There is a ton of detail on Emily's chest plate here, and she let the printer do that work because sitting there and sanding that, she still had to sand it a little bit, and those messages in the group chat were really funny of you just losing your mind sanding it, but let the printer do the work so you have to sand less. If I was to sand my chest plate though, it's a big smooth part. I can print it out really quickly and power sand it. So, and that's going to really dictate how much material you're using, primers and spray paints and all of that.
I'm just wondering, Emily, how on earth do you get all your hair inside an Iron Man helmet?
Was it a hair question?
I heard something about my hair, so it's probably about how do I manage my hair. Yeah, it kind of goes everywhere. Yeah, people on the internet think I wear a wig, and I'm like, I don't know how to prove to you this is my hair, like I'm yanking at it. But yeah, I just kind of pull it back. Like in the helmet, I have like a cover that goes over my head. It kind of pulls all my hair back, and I actually stick it down the back of the neck. That's why my neck piece is loose, so I can actually shove it in the back of my neck piece. Right now, obviously, it's everywhere. It's probably closed in that chest piece that I just opened up a couple minutes ago, but it's a lot, but it's doable. It's definitely doable.
Okay, guys, I think we can all agree these guys have been absolutely amazing. They are just around the corner as well, so make sure you come and speak to them. Give them a bigger round of applause than that. They deserve it. Thank you so much, guys.